Hi, welcome to Let Us Know. This is me, your presenter, Waden. Today's program, we're going to talk about the peace implementation. And we're glad to join us in this program today is none other than Honorable Peter Mayen, who is a member of National Pre-Transitional Committee. He is today here with us to tell us more about the implementation of the agreement. Honorable Mayen, you are welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm highly appreciated to be your host today.
Thank you. Okay, can you tell us, people, we want you to update our people about the progress, about the implementation of the peace agreement?
I would like to, first of all, send my greeting and regard to all South Sudanese and to the lovers of peace of South Sudan and those who dreams for better generations. I would like to assure them that the implementation of the peace process apparently is far more different from the previous one. Right now it's moving at a high level of speed, at a speed that all the members and all the mechanisms and everyone is busy towards the implementation of the pre-transition activities, be it the areas in the security arrangements or also be it the areas in governance. Generally, I would like to say that the 8 month we had spent, we went on a slow rate. Apparently, right now we are moving at a high rate. And we are very much aware of the challenges that are ahead of us to meet the deadline. But I wanted to assure the South Sudanese the spirit that is existing and the level of the speed that is existing, regardless of the challenges that we are currently facing.
We know very well that this peace was a bit going slowly in its implementation due to lack of budget. By saying you are now at higher speed, are you telling us you got the money to see into that this peace agreement is being implemented?
Yes, we got the money, even if it's not all, and you cannot have all at once, and you cannot really have everything at once. Even in normal family situations, as a family head, you cannot have the family budget for 1 month, but you can have for a week, and you can have for the next weeks. Apparently, yes, we had managed to be able to get funding from the government, the government of the government of the day, or the Tigo, no, the governor Tigo, no, and that money, whether much or small, has created a great impact toward the implementations. It has been able to help the forces move to the cantonment area. It has been able to help forces to have food and feeding in those cantonment areas. And even now we are beyond the cantonment. We are talking about we are moving to the next stage, which is the screening, the assembling, and toward the training. And those activities, with the spirit again that exists today, and the job that the JMCC is doing, and other mechanisms, and the spirit that exists with our men and women in uniform that are yearning for peace, that want to see South Sudan in a different shape in few months to come. I would say the spirit, the circumstances, things are moving far more different from what they have been moving in the past. I don't mean to say that we have got all the money that supposed we should have. I'm not saying that we have got rid of all the challenges that we're supposed to, the challenges we had in the past. Yes, the challenges remains, the obstacle remains, but the little that we have now, we have been able to build on, and apparently, yes, we could say the situation is different from what we had before the extension period of time.
Okay, are you telling us by the end of these 6 months that has been proposed, everything will be in place? Now it will allow for the formation of the government of national unity?
Well, I think I'll give you a biblical statement that always says that the flesh is weak, but the spirit is eager. What I mean, if I translate it from political point of view, that the political will that exists is not the political will of the leaders we have been always talking about it, but the will of the men and the women in uniform, the will of the general public, and their commitment toward this peace process. With the little amount of money that has been released, they have done tremendous job. They have been able to make a great job that was unimaginable compared to the previous. That tells you that if we maintain the same spirit, as long as we continue to have the weak spirit, I mean, no matter how much the ability, the inability, that is the flesh I will refer to, but we will be able to implement. So what I want to say is that yes, we will be able to deliver. We may not be able to deliver 100%. I remember one of my primary school teacher told me, Peter, your problem, you want to score 100%. You may not always score 100%. You will always score 99 plus or 99 minus. So the whole idea is that we may not be able to score all that is needed by the end of the extended 6 months, but we will be able to achieve something at the end of the 6 months, because the political will that exists, the commitment that exists, and the love that South Sudanese now are tired of war. South Sudanese now want to see a future that will lead them to peace, eventually to democratic transformations, and thereafter to people-driven governance. And that will be a government that will not harm anybody, and that a government that will focus on development, peace, and prosperity. So in short, and to conclude, yes, we will be able to achieve at least something before the end of the transition. Whatever that remains will eventually be completed, because already we have a ministry within the agreement that is called the Ministry of Peace building. This Ministry of Peace building is basically, when the parties agreed to have this ministry, we knew that even if we implement the agreement during the pre-transition period, there are certain elements, certain obstacles, certain things that will remain that needed to be implemented. And peace is a process. It's not about just a security arrangement, it's not about arrangement in the government, but peace is a process that you have to continue to maintain it, peaceful coexistence, and of course we know as South Sudanese, we look back at the history, and we have a long way history since 1955. We inherited 8 issues from 1955 to 1972. We inherited issues from 1972 to 1983. We inherited issues from 1983 to 2013. All those issues are grievances, issues affect our peaceful coexistence, issues that actually affect our future, affect our governance, and therefore all these aspects require a process. But now, most all these issues are being lump summed and thrown on the National Pre-Transition Committee. We cannot resolve everything at once, but we could be able to lay down a ground that will cement we can build on, and that's why we have the Ministry of Peace. So therefore, whatever activities that remains, as the parties agreed and the commitment of the parties remains, and the South Sudanese continue to yearn for peace and they continue to commit toward peaceful process, that means we could be able to finish the remaining tasks during the pre-transition period, as long as the spirit is eager, despite the obstacles, despite the challenges.
Okay, Honorable, it seems like people are not really convinced that this training will happen in 4 months' time, and these forces will be ready. And we understood the leader of the SPLM-IO, who is Dr. Ariak, saying if the security arrangement could not be put in place still the 6 months, he cannot come.
Okay, I will respond to his positions later, but I want to assure you that the forces we have is amalgamated forces. It's a combined forces. You have those who have never went to any military training field. What they only know is to cook and shoot. There are forces that had been trained for 3 months. There are forces that are well trained. They have gone through various forces. There are forces that were part and parcel of the previous government, and because of the crisis, they were able to take different dimensions. And we have forces that are well trained. this is not just about to equip them all to one level of training, but now we have decided the first phase is that we are focusing on what is called the National Unified Forces. And the National Unified Forces is not people who are just starting from scratch. These are people that have been trained, they have they know, and some of them are their colleagues within. You know, if you look at today, the chief of the army of the government forces and the chief of the arm of the IO forces, these are people, are colleague people who knew themselves. You look at the generals, and therefore we want to say what was dividing us now can still unite us. And now we have to bring them together, not just only to create a unified forces, but to revive their memory back to that great spirit that they used to have as a comrade, as Zumula, you know, so that we bring. So basically, our major first focus, the first screening, is going basically to focus on the unified forces, and the unified forces, these are all the people that already have a military training, but we want to retrain them, bring them together and says, look, the situation has changed, take your military path, and here we are taking our political path. So that means irrespective of the length and the times of the training that will still remains, the fact still remains that the people that will be first trained are the people have a military background and people that already know. We just need to remind them why they should be in uniform and why they are in uniform.
Okay, even there is this issue of these cantonment areas that were actually being, located already. These forces, some of them have not yet moved to those cantonment areas. And then I don't know, maybe you can also tell our viewers how many areas that already the forces has been cantoned.
And so unfortunately, I may not tell the viewers how many, but I will give the reasons. I may not tell the viewers how many forces has moved to where and where.
I mean the areas. The
areas I may not, but what I want to say is that I may give the reasons. This is purely administrative, and which is actually handled from administrative military point of view. You usually in military administrations, you have the field commanders and you have the high commanders, and all those forces, they have the field commanders. Right now, as a national member, as a member of the National Pre-Transition Committee, we had already issued notice and we have instructed the high commanders to instruct the field commanders, and the instruction that is apparently going on, they have to report. You know, so that remains from the administration point of view between the high command and the field commanders. Yeah, and purely that, I mean, mostly the operation commanders are the major one who plays those major kind of role. But the screening, there's a unit that does with the screening, but there's a unit that deal with the cantonment. The GMCC deal with the cantonment. But the criteria, how the selections and the training goes, it's happening. The fact that right now the cantonments are operationalized, there is no issue about more that their forces do not have food. There's no more issue of the fact that, so this already is a process. The difficult thing is the assembling, you know, I mean, bring the forces to cantonment. Once they are in the cantonment forces, as they are today, the remaining exercise is a matter of a routine. It's a matter of training. This is purely technical, and it's a matter of be able to relieve the first unit, which is the necessary unified forces.
Okay, Honorable, let us go for a break, and then we'll be back and continue with our discussions. Welcome back to Let Us Know. We are here today discussing about the implementation of the agreement that was signed last year. And with us here in this program is Honorable Peter Mayen, who is a member of National Pre-Transitional Committee. We want to know, since you came to Juba until today, what degree, to what extent have our leaders built confidence among themselves?
Indeed, confidence building is a major process. And I would also like to let you know that the absence of confidence or lack of confidence among the leaders is what has delayed it, what has delayed the implementation of the agreement. And is one of the reasons why the 8 month could have never been met. But the fact remains that we have built confidence. The day we signed the agreements on the 12th of September, we were extremely far apart. All of us, the oppositions, we took our plane back to Khartoum. The government, they took their plane back to Juba. And thereafter, we had, when the President Salva Kiir came to Khartoum to us, we had a dinner. Yes, we were still sitting different apart. The government was on the other side, with the oppositions on the other side. But at the end, we decided to break that differences. And I remember when I received a call from Tut Galwak. He says, Peter, you need to come. I asked him, did you call the rest? He says, I called them. And I said, what did they respond? They says, they are not coming. And I said, why do you want me to come? He says, okay, you come because you believe in democracy and people-driven process. And I said, okay. So I took the courage and I came. And after that, when I came, it was about 3 days again. Deng Alor immediately came. And it did not even took us long again. Then the events for the celebrations, and everyone came to Juba. So this is just to tell you, it requires courage, okay, to break the deadlock. Now, when we started our first meeting as the National Pre-Transition, we started it in Khartoum. We all went to Khartoum just to convince our brothers in Ayo and Sua. Me and Deng Alor, we were already here. So we had to convince the two Ayo and Sua so that we can be able to move all our meeting to Juba. That seems to be impossible, but we made it possible. And as a result of that, we did debate, and we first came to Juba, and today everyone is here in Juba, including Madam Angelina is here in Juba. And I would like to take this platform to say to the leader of the SPLM-IO that it requires courage to break the deadlock over the issue to do with trust. He was here during the celebrations, and of course still it is possible you could still be here. But I'm not taking it from a different point of view, but this is my personal appeal. The trust has been built. It is not only just built among the opposition or among the politicians, but it is also built among the armed groups. As a member of the NPTC, I have nearly traveled all the parts of the country. I've been to Bahr al-Ghazal, I've been to Upper Nile, and I have been to Equatoria. In Maridi, both are eating together, staying together, you know, the forces of the opposition and the forces of the government. The forces of the oppositions in Upper Nile and the forces of the government in Upper Nile, you cannot differentiate them, because you find them, they are the same Shuluk, the same Nuer, the same Dinkas, and you cannot differentiate them, particularly to me who comes from Bahr al-Ghazal. In Bahr al-Ghazal, this is more of brotherhood. When we were in Awil East, you know, the forces of the oppositions in Bahr al-Ghazal and the forces of the government in Bahr al-Ghazal were nearly the same and equal people. You cannot differentiate them. So therefore, much has been done, you know, and all of us, we are here in Juba, and the questions of whether being guided is purely a process of security, so that there should be no blamed on the other side. Assuming, you know, if you are in my territory, you know, and I have to protect you, you know, if you come to my area, I have to protect you, and I have to make sure that you are secure, and you're well taken care of, you know. So I would say trust has been built, but the biggest problem remains with the anti-peace elements. People that wanted the situations to continue the way it has been. People who wanted to keep, you know, a status of anarchy, where there is no peace.
When we talk of anti-peace, anti-peace, people who are anti-peace,
Yeah.
what do you mean? Are you telling us, are they within your opposition, or they are in the government, or
They are both. They are both. When we talk about anti-peace, are both people in the government, and they are also in oppositions. What they want is that we continue to have a scenario or a situation where there is no peace, there is no war. So when people are moving toward a peaceful directions, they move toward a status of war. And when people move to status of war, they move to status of, so they don't want a country to have one kind of directions. And this actually brings us to a biggest question: is where does the future of South Sudan lies? Where is the future? Is the future with war? We have been fighting for a number of years, since 1955, you know. But what about a peaceful situations? We had been at peace in a temporal basis, and we have seen the fruitage of being in peace in temporal basis. The peace we had after the signing of the 1972 agreement are the building we have today in Juba, are the roads we have today in Juba. And you have seen we were able to build on a little democracy, a little elections, and even the parliaments, whether all these buildings, you know. So that was, and within that period of time, people were able to have access to education. People were able to build infrastructure. People were able to build institutions, you know, and that was an initial team. But after 83, again the South came down. And look here, even when we got our independence, the peace we had in from 2000 and
5?
no, from 2005 to 2013, and particularly from 2011 to 2013, Juba was developing. Economic was booming, the real booming, not the today booming, you know, and things were moving forward, you know. So there was a way forward, there was a hope, and there was a real future of seeing where the new nation is. So that's why, to us as the OPP, and particularly to the umbrella, we do believe that the prosperity of South Sudan future lies in the hands of peace. Under peaceful environment, we could be all able to groom all our various ideology, whether political, you know, ideas, economic, you know. We could be able to invest in ourselves, on our people, and in the future. So, but at the end of the day, we had, it was unfortunate, the country went where it is today, but it is never too late. We could still be able to restore South Sudan back to where it is. And I'm calling on the South Sudanese, from those who are viewers and those who are listening, that our major objective now is to support this peace process, the revitalized agreement, so that it does not only revitalize peace, but it revitalizes our life. It revitalizes our future, and it creates a way forward. And of course, the challenges are great, but the spirit still is eager. Or in political statement, we still say that we still have a political will, you know, and a commitment to be able to bring the future to the South Sudanese.
Okay, Honorable Peter, maybe we want you to tell us, will that issue of the state not affect the, not delay also the process of forming a national government in November?
The issue of the state,
the number of the states.
Yes, the issue of the number of the states, it has been an issue. In fact, as a matter of reality, the agreement may have not been signed because it was difficult for the parties to agree on the number of the states. But eventually, the OPP had a position, and their positions is what probably had emerged. Our position is that if we look back at the history, when the British left us, they left us with 3 regions, or they left us as one, and then, okay, we had 3 regions. Let me not talk about the British and all this, it will take us back to history. We had 3 regions. Out of the 3 regions, we had 10, and the 10 were decreed by the president, and we inherited the 10, and then we had the 28 and 32. Our position, or what I want to say, is that all these were decreed. All these were decreed, but none was people-driven process. And as we said, a people-driven process should prevail over a political decisions and over the elite decision in any manner. And that's what created the idea of referendum, that if the parties cannot agree, then they have to be there a referendum. We were not realistic when we discussed the issue of the state because we were rushing. There were proposal of 21 by the SPLM-IO. There were also proposal of 10 by SUA, and there was a proposal of 32 plus by the government. But the OPP did not give any position because basically they are believing in people-driven process. So we said whatever our people decide is what we will abide. And this goes back to principle of a social justice. When I cannot impose on you something that you are comfortable with or something you are uncomfortable with. In other words, mean to say that it is injustice to say that 32 states should prevail over those who don't want it. And it is also injustice to say 32 states should not prevail or 32 states should be nullified over those who don't want it to be nullified. So you are comfortable with 32 states is your right. I'm not comfortable with 32 states is also my right, you know. But the fact is still we have to look who is affected and who is not affected. Back again to the topic, what's the way forward? There are 2 ways forward. One is that it may require a political decision. If the parties to the agreements, the 5 parties, could agree on a particular number, that is fine. If the parties to the agreement could not agree to a particular number, then the provisions of subjecting it to the public as a people, for the people to decide, still remain the same. Whether the idea of that we have overlapped the timeline and the implementation matrix are not realistic. Yes, of course, by extension itself, that actually affects the implementation matrix, but does not affect the principles of the implementation. I mean, if some things need to be done, they need to be done. Even the report of the IBC, they're submitting it late, and I think it has not even yet arrived now to the parties. So if it is a matrix, we are behind matrix, but that does not delay the implementation of the agreement. I would say that we hopefully the parties, or we, the parties, will definitely arrive to a solution, and therefore a political solution outside the box is important. But could we hold peace hostage from our people because of the questions of the states? What is bigger? Is it the number of the states or the peace of generations to come?
Okay, I want just you also to tell us why do you think some countries are reluctant in supporting this peace implementation?
I just wanted to give you a very frank and blank answer. We were supported to death by friends and so many countries. They supported us during our struggle. They stood with us day and night. And they made sure that we have an independent Republic of South Sudan. And then their dreams, after they achieved that, after we achieved it, they sat back and they relaxed, hoping that now South Sudanese will achieve their claims toward peaceful society of South Sudan, their claims toward a democratic society of South Sudan, their claims towards, you can name it, all the issues we struggle and we fought for. But shortly, after 3 years, we betrayed their hope. We went to a senseless war, a war that had no meaning, a war that all the issues we claimed to have fought for in 2013, we can still negotiate them on the table. So from there, I think most of the countries says, look, we supported you to have a future, and now you're destroying your own future. Now, what do we want from us anymore? And so for us to do this is to regain the confidence of the people, of the people that supported us. It's not difficult, it's never too late, it's not impossible, but we have to be realistic. Other aspect of that, I don't know, but that is one of the reasons that I
Why they are not,
sure.
why they are reluctant.
Yeah.
Okay, now our time is almost getting closer. Maybe I want you just to conclude for us with what is expected scenario in November. Like, okay, if React do not come in, what do you expect?
November is basically a very important thing. I take the November not from a prospect of formation of the government as normal. I don't take November as whether React comes or not. I take November as a challenge month for South Sudanese to be able to assure the world and everybody that we are committed toward the world, towards the will of our people, and the will of our people is peace, prosperity. That's what we want. So if we're able to form a government by November, definitely we will have championed our commitment, and therefore the entire world, and even those who are reluctant from, so you say those who are reluctant from supporting the agreement, could be able to support the agreement. So it's not about Riek or Kir or the parties to the agreement, but it's about to show the world that we can still come back and live as South Sudanese.
Okay, in less than a minute, your final words.
My final word is that peace is a process, and it comes through commitment. And for us South Sudanese, we want to champion, to show to the world, to everybody, that we are the South Sudanese, that are people of the great resilience. No matter what we had gone through in the past, we can still reconcile, we can still bring peace back to our people, and we will always be people and a nation of great resilience.
Thank you very much. Viewers of SSBC, with this, we have come to the end of our program. Till then, bye-bye.